The bounds of your experience are indicated by the circle. The center of consciousness is termed the ego. It simply means I. In German, it's the Ich. I have represented this as rectangular to indicate that its mode of judgment is not in accord with that of the body, with that of nature. This room that we're in is rectangular. It's built by consciousness. When you walk out of this room, you come into the country out there, this beautiful country. It has nothing to do with rectangles. And all conscious thinking is likewise out of accord with the order of the body. Myths come from down here, from where the energies come from, as dreams do. And it's the business of ego not to try to dictate to this circle, to say how square it should be, but to try to bring its impulse system into relationship to the conditions of the environment which ego has constructed. Culture is a cooperation, is the result of a cooperation between the self, you might say, and the ego. And mythology is the language of the self speaking to the ego system. And the ego system has to learn how to read it. And for the most part, we in our world have forgotten. Now, down below there, we have the shadow, as Jung calls it. It's like the blind spot for ego. That about yourself of which your ego is completely unconscious, of which it has no knowledge whatsoever. I've rendered it in a series of separate strokes. This shadow, in Jung's terminology, corresponds almost precisely to the Freudian unconscious. The Freudian unconscious is constituted of repressed experiences, repressed shocks that the infant, first the infant and then later the growing child has experienced. Jung's first interest in Freud was in Freud's theory of the mechanism of repression. What is it in the psyche that so puts these things out of sight that consciousness is completely unaware of them? And it is these shocks that have set up the slant, the posture, the structuring attitude of the individual to life. It's these that constitute the personal unconscious. The shocks that will have upset and transformed the life experience of one person will not be precisely the same as those that will have done so for another. And so the shadow is the order of what Jung calls the personal unconscious. On the other hand, the self is a function of the biology of the body. We have two things here. We have a basic human biology, and we have then a system of individual experiences, both in the unconscious realm as far as our ego knowledge is concerned. It's out of those centers, then, that dreams come, and dreams, of course, will be primarily personally oriented. They will have come from the shadow system mostly, but the shadow system rests on the deeper ground. When we come to myths, the imagery is out of the general system. And Jung speaks of two orders of dream. There'll be one order of symbols that you can interpret by personal associations, the free association technique that Freud uses. But there will be then other images in your dreams at certain critical moments in your life that you cannot interpret through personal associations. They will be strictly mythological in their character. On the other hand, you can have dreams that have to do with personal experiences that are quite peculiar to yourself. And these Jung calls the the small or little dreams, and the others the big dreams. Often the big dreams occur in technicolor. The next problem is that